Hey folks, Eshin Lacoste here from All Wise Transformation. Today I have a really good friend, Tammy, who's joining us, and she's gonna have a conversation with us about sort of a combination of self-care mostly, but in the realm of the sequences of mental health, self-care, and spiritual practice because I really do believe like all of those are connected. And our conversation today with Tammy is going to sort of be about nutrition, and yoga a little bit, and sort of like some somatic stuff and what does that look like. And Tammy will probably share to her comfort her journey on what that looks like. Hey Tammy.
Hi, Eshin.
Tammy, how long have we known each other? We've known each other for a while now, right?
Yes, well, you were a mere child when you came to one of my yoga classes, which was what? 20 years ago?
Just about. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was it at the pyramid where you doing
Pyramid.
it?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I think ever since then we just really clicked.
Yeah.
And we've definitely had really good conversations here and there. And so I guess let's start with what does it mean for self-care? What does that look like?
Self-care. Good question. It seems simple enough, right? So, like I said, I was thinking, oh, I'm going to talk with Eshin, so I'll make myself some notes. But I started out thinking, taking care of ourselves. It seems like it should be a pretty basic responsibility as a human being to take responsibility for taking care of ourselves. And, ideally, I think we teach our children how to be healthy by our modeling our behavior, or, ideally. But what does that mean? So, a healthy diet, what is that? So we can talk about that a little bit. I do have a master's degree in nutrition that I haven't used much in 20 years other than for self-care. I mean, I practiced counseling for a while, but anyway, so a healthy diet, I think we all know we want a healthy diet, whatever that is. Drink plenty of water. How much is that? Well, you could argue a lot about that. Getting enough sleep. Well, how much is that? And the right amount of exercise. Well, how much is that? And what does that mean? So, I mean, those are kind of the basic, that's the framework I think that the medical community and everyone says this is what we need to be healthy, right? Healthy
Yeah.
diet, exercise, and sleep. So why is it that I did some Googling? 69% of adults in the USA are overweight, which means that BMI is over 25. That's a huge chunk of the population.
Yeah.
Um, so that's overweight, and 30% of those are considered to be obese. So there's a lot of that going on. And there's also a huge problem with diabetes in our culture. And
Do you think that's part like just folks are just on the go, constant go, and that sort of
no,
stuff?
I think it's from eating crap.
Okay, yeah.
I think that um, people have lost sight of eating whole food for one thing. So if you're just grabbing stuff quickly, and General Mills and Kellogg have convinced us that carbohydrates are the thing to do. Well, if you think about all the popular diets that are out there now, everybody's heard about low carb diet, and then it started with the Atkins diet. That's nobody even does that anymore. That was 20 years ago. But what it was a low carb diet. And if you think about now, there's paleo, and there's meat based, and there's carnivore. So that's something I've been exploring.
Mm.
But all of those have figured out that we really need to have more protein and fat in our diet and not so much carbs, because carbs raise the blood sugar and then you have those bounces. And what we want to do is keep the blood sugar level so that we're not having those spikes and valleys. So, but one of my, well, I wanted back to overweight and diabetes. It's a little like squares and rectangles. This is my metaphor. Okay, not all people who are overweight are diabetic, but a huge percentage of diabetic people are overweight. So it's related to body size and blood levels of insulin, and their hyperinsulinemia is a big one leading up to diabetes. So, if your insulin is too high, you better start getting on it right now so that it doesn't become diabetes. So,
And
um,
and I feel like with the numbers that you read, it feels like I have been meeting a whole lot more folks who do have diabetes
yeah,
or seeing pictures on social media with folks with sort of the patch for
right.
for diabetes, which
Glucose
I'm
monitoring.
yeah,
Yeah,
which I'm really surprised like there's that much of a jump.
yeah, yeah. It's huge. Yeah. You can hear my dog barking in the background. Stella. So, on this topic, I personally, did nutrition counseling years and years ago, and I had been taught in at UVM Medical or UVM School of Nutrition that 70% of our calories should come from carbohydrates and 10 or 15% from protein and just a little tiny bit from fat. If you think about the food pyramid that we were told, all the grains and vegetables are down here and then fruits, and then coming up to meats and fats on top. Well, now the thinking, not just from me or not just from people kind of on the edges or anything, but from medical doctors are starting to say, no, so it's almost like it's flipped around. The majority of our calories should be from protein and fat. And if you're a carnivore, and you can, see lots of YouTube videos about that, the radical side of that is that some people will say we weren't meant to eat plants. That if you look at paleontology and what humans were to, designed to eat, it's animal foods. One of my favorite health sources, Dr. Ken Berry, and he said something that really stuck with me. He said, human beings are the only species that doesn't know intuitively what to eat. We try this, we try that, we go on all these crazy diets. Animals eat what they know is good for their bodies. So we've, I think, gotten so out of tune with our bodies, and that can lead to for physical health, but also that's related to mental health, because if we're feeling sluggish and just having digestive issues and just not feeling good, that's going to affect our mental health as well and how we function in the world.
And I feel like that because I heard I read some articles about like the gut
Yeah, right.
in our
Biomicron
biomicrobes like that
microbes. Yeah,
that also has, that plays a huge effect on our mood, as you just
absolutely. Yeah,
described, and
right.
the depending on what you're eating also has an effect on sort of our perception or our mood, and so yeah, I think what we
And if
eat.
you think about how the overuse of antibiotics, that has affected that biomicrobe area. And, that's why now it's recommended to take acidophilus if you're taking an antibiotic, because you're killing all the good bacteria. And so, yeah, microbiome is really important to have healthy bacteria in your gut so that you can digest whatever food you do take in. Um, so Dr. Berry, who says that plants are trying to kill us, has coined the term proper human diet. And what that is, like I said, carnivore. So basically meat and animal products, meaning eggs, things that come from animals, dairy if you can tolerate it. But so many people have dairy sensitivities, and so many people have food sensitivities because they've been eating too many carbs, So proper human diet, eat more, eat more meat. um, and so that's really kind of a paradigm shift. And it's in total polar opposition to what I was taught in nutrition school 20 years ago. And so I started looking into it for myself because I had over the years and being lazy and maybe having a little too many cocktails before dinner here and there, I had ended up being 20 pounds heavier than was normal for me or than I was comfortable with. Now, I've never had a weight issue in my life. I've been lucky that way. And I worked with doing diet counseling with people for a few years after I got the degree. And I see how people struggle with it. Anyway, so I, in the last, say, 10 years, started gaining weight, and I ended up, like I said, 20 pounds overweight. And I thought, well, I'm a nutritionist. I should be able to lose this weight. I know what I have to do. And I thought I did. And I thought I was eating well, and I was not losing an ounce. And then I discovered intermittent fasting.
Mm.
And I thought, I'll try that. And sure enough, I felt great. And I wasn't having indigestion anymore. I wasn't having to take Tums every night before bed. But was I losing weight? No, not an ounce. Could not lose any weight. I was talking to my chiropractor about it, and he said, yeah, you got to go carnivore. I said, what? I have to do what? He said, yep, it's a thing. And he gave me a couple of names to look into, and he gave me a book to read about it. And so I thought, oh, all right, I'll try it. And the weight came off not all at once, because it's a healthy way to lose weight actually. So it came down gradually. But it really is true that I didn't feel my mood stayed more level because my blood sugar, as the reason behind it is that my blood sugar was more level and there weren't those spikes from eating carbs. So I started feeling more calm and level-headed and got the weight off. And so I said, well, there's something to this. So now I've been doing that for about a year. So now I'm at the point where it's like, well, I'm back down to where I want to be. And I really miss fruit. Oh, it would be okay to eat some fruit, right? So I've started adding back in a little bit. But I really miss pasta too. Well, so I think it's hard for us to stay away from carbohydrates because they're so prevalent in our culture.
They're everywhere. Yeah.
Yeah, everything, yeah. So much of what everybody eats is so that's what I've been struggling with. That's where I'm at now. So I'm sort of so now I've heard some other terms thrown around. I'm doing a meat-based diet, instead of a vegetarian-based diet, or, so it's largely meat, but it's not just meat.
So
And
so
that's
what
what's
so what does that look like? Like in the mornings, do you have like some eggs, or and then
yeah.
in the for lunch you may have maybe like a tuna fish something or
Well, tuna fish, yeah. I mean, no. So, well, first of all, I find that what's recommended is eating whatever you want, as much as you want, so you don't feel like you're restricting. So I don't do it every day, but I could, on this type of diet plan, you could conceivably have bacon and eggs and sausage every day, but no toast, and that felt funny to me for a while. But the thing is, again, going back to my understanding of the human body and nutrition, if you're eating a lot of meat and fat, you're going into ketosis, which means burning protein for energy. Okay. I'm sorry, burning fat for energy. And that's great. That's what you want to do. Now, people get a little freaked out. Like my brother-in-law is diabetic, and my sister said, "Well, ketosis, that's terrible." No, diabetic acidosis, ketosis. Ketoacidosis is dangerous. Yes, but for normal, healthy people, we want to train our bodies to burn fat for energy because that's more efficient, really, than burning carbs. Carbs burn off more easily, but it's not a lasting energy. And again, it's all about blood sugar spikes and we want to keep it level. So we want to put ourselves in ketosis. But if I'm doing that, if I'm eating all this high fat food, and then I have a bagel or a croissant or as a pasta, then all that fat that I've eaten is going to get stored in the liver or in the wherever your body stores fat. So that's, I think, the danger for me at the point that I'm at now. If you really stay on the carnivore thing, it's a healthy diet. But if you're doing that and eating some carbs, then that's going to kind of throw the balance the other way,
mm.
and the fat will get stored. So that's the issue for me. Acidosis. Um, So back to what a regular day would look like. So say it was a day when I did have bacon and eggs. Okay. First of all, you're eating a higher fat, higher protein. You're going to not feel hungry as soon. If you have a bowl of cereal, you're going to be hungry an hour and a half or 2 hours later, or a lot of people are. That's what I found to be true. So if I have the high fat, high protein, then I'm not hungry. So I'm basically eating 2 meals a day when I can work that way. So in a regular work lifestyle, that's going to be harder to do because yeah, you could have your main meal at lunchtime, but then so ideally for me, if I have breakfast at between 9 and 10, and I have my second meal, you can call it whatever you want, lunch or dinner, um, three, it's anywhere between 2 and 4 o'clock. Then I'm done. Then I'm done. And that was a hard pattern to break from our usual eating. Even if we eat an early dinner, it was considered 6 o'clock or so, right? But the the later in the day I eat, the more likely I am to have indigestion and not sleep well. So cutting back, my last meal ending by 5 o'clock, certainly. Don't need anything after 5, then I sleep better, which is huge for physical and mental health because I have had an Ambien prescription that I refill on a fairly regular basis for years. And now I've pretty much weaned myself off that.
So I'm curious about like that relationship change about mentally thinking about food differently or your relationship with food. Like,
Hmm.
I'm curious about how that process was for you.
Okay. Well, it was torture, basically. Um, it's hard to break habits. And I know again from when I was working with people on diet, doing diet counseling, I mean, that's the hardest thing is people getting out of what is feels like their normal habit and their pattern of eating. So I really had to make a conscious choice. I'm going to try this. I'm just going to try it. If I don't like it, I don't have to stick with it. I can do whatever I want. I'm a grown up. I can change my diet. So I just, went out and I mean, the recommendation is to throw out all the stuff you think might tempt you and then just get in the food that you want to be eating. But that's a personal choice. I ended up just getting some meals planned because that's a big part. If you don't have anything planned, then you're more likely to just grab whatever's convenient and easy. Um, so make a plan, and I would come home, and I figured, well, this in a way is really easier, and in a way, it's saving money. I This morning, like I said, I've been craving fruit, so I went and bought some fruit. Well, fruit and vegetables are expensive these days. Everything is, and so is a ribeye steak. But anyway, I'm kind of bouncing around here, but
No.
basically I would just plan some meals and then, I'd make a big stew or something and that's what I would eat. And my body didn't have a problem with it really. I've seen lots of videos and read about people who have a harder time getting used to that kind of diet, that they would get almost flu-like symptoms and not feel well in their digestive tract because their body was getting rid of toxins, basically. I mean, it doesn't mean it's a bad thing, but I didn't really have to go through that. So for me, it was a pretty easy transition. And like I said, didn't feel hungry, but that's not all cravings are about. Cravings are about wanting something.
Ooh.
So I would know I was not hungry, but I really wanted just a little Dove chocolate wouldn't hurt. Right? Just a little chocolate square. That's not going to kill me. So, that's a challenge for me, an ongoing challenge for me. But like I said, the diet seems to have worked. But back to the other part of wellness for me is yoga. I am a yoga teacher and I practice every day, at least a little bit. And so I think all of that wellness and self care for me, are about feeling good in my body. So eating right is going to make me feel better, doing some movement that works for me, not feeling like I have to be driven and make sure I get enough exercise and how many steps have I, but just to do the practice of yoga. And sometimes I do a slightly more vigorous practice, and sometimes I do a really gentle practice, whatever my body is telling me it needs. But something every day. I think that's really important for everyone to have some kind of movement in their day every day. I mean, I walk the dog too, but other than that, walking and yoga are about the kind of exercise I do. And then it occurred to me, well, maybe I need to do some strength training. So I started adding in some of that. Now I have a sore shoulder all the time. So, but whatever, the yoga gets me to a place of, yes, it feels okay to be in my body. It feels better to be in my body now than it did when I woke up stiff and achy.
Yeah, and there's something about like not feeling a little groggy or hungover, whatever the again, not necessarily substances, but sometimes just the process of waking up or just
Yeah.
being in your body can be disassociating. And
Mm-hmm.
I think it's
Mm-hmm.
like the combination of the food, being really mindful of what you put in your body and how that's affecting you and the mood that comes from it. And then on top of that, the practice of being in your body,
Mm-hmm.
which I feel like really shifts you to be really more centered.
Absolutely. In my teaching, I'm so aware of when I notice it more when a new student comes in and they're just so stiff and so rigid and so uncomfortable in their bodies, and they don't really understand what I mean by lift your right arm overhead. It's like they have to say what, do what, because they're just not connected to their bodies.
Yeah.
and that's it doesn't mean that to do yoga you have to be able to touch your toes, but you have to have a sense of like how to move your body forward, even if you don't get very far.
Yeah.
But so that's what I work on a lot in my classes, really, is having people move into whatever pose, whatever shape we're doing to the extent that works for their body. It's so important to not say, I can't do yoga because the girl on the cover of Yoga Journal magazine is in this ridiculous pose. Well, yeah, normal bodies don't do that. That doesn't mean you can't do yoga. If you can sit on the floor and breathe and have a little stretch, you just did some yoga if you do it mindfully. And that's really what it boils down to is moving with awareness and using your breath
Yeah.
to to help your body move.
You said something that really caught my attention and wanting when you said like I may not be necessarily hungry, but I'm
Right.
wanting
So
something.
physical cravings
And those
are,
physical cravings, and I
yeah,
guess I'm curious if you could say a little bit more about like what do you mean by that difference? Like, because I've heard of people say, oh, sometimes it's just thirst, right? Like, just drink some water because maybe you're not necessarily hungry. Maybe you're just dehydrated, and it's feeling like you're hungry, right? Again, I think that's
yeah, that's
the need to sort of be in your body to be more aware of like what's really triggering me. Am I having a headache, or did I what I ate, was it not enough, or was it because sometimes we eat things that's just not filling and then we just want to eat some more to or we eat because our feelings, and so we're eating because we don't want to feel, or we're eating because we want to be numb. So it's sort of like that disassociation, and then I think when you said that wanting, it felt like being
mhm.
disassociated from your body. Am I completely?
Oh, no, I think that's interesting. When you said if you eat but don't feel full, I think again there's a difference between feeling full and feeling satisfied.
Ooh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
when I talk about craving, I think a physical craving, if there's a food that you really want, doesn't that mean your body needs that? Well, I don't know. In my case, probably not, because I probably don't need the chocolate. But maybe what I need is, well, I don't know. This is what I'm still trying to figure out. What does it mean when my body is telling me I really want some chocolate? Does it mean that I need more carbohydrate? Does that mean that that's what my body needs? Maybe I can't just have fat and protein. I don't know. I'm not sure. But I do know that people have all kinds of emotional connections and attachments to foods. And whatever your mama used to give you when you were a kid, that's become a comfort food for you. Well, so that comes into play in cravings and in trying to eat healthy. If what we were eating, if what we were given for comfort foods isn't healthy food for us, then we have to disentangle from that. So I don't know the answer. I think that in yoga, ideally, if we're in a mind state where we're aware of our bodies and we're feeling okay, I think we're more likely to make better choices about foods that nourish us and do make us feel satisfied so that we won't be craving things that are not good for us.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah. And it's a practice, right? It's something, and I think
Oh, yeah.
you
Yeah.
mentioned that, right? Like it's like I don't not getting into that perfection mindset, right? Not getting into that mindset
Right.
that I have to do this right, or I have, like you mentioned earlier, like my body needs to look like that yoga pose that I'm
Right.
seeing,
Right. Yeah.
and getting into this sort of like I'm going to be a little softer with myself. I'm going to be a little easier with myself because the process of change, regardless of what it is, it takes some heavy lifting.
Yeah. Right. It has to be a choice, a conscious choice to make a change. And then kind of doing self-reflection along the way so that when things like those cravings arise, to really be able to sit and look at where is this coming from, not just to let yourself go and grab it, just because then you're going to end up feeling bad and feeling like you failed and like this isn't working for me. Well, no, that didn't work for you. So let's look at what we could have done differently. You know, um, it's not easy, and it does have to become a lifestyle change, not just a diet. if we're talking about diet, or if we're talking about movement. It's not just, oh, if I took a yoga class for a month, then I'm done. I don't have to do it anymore. It's finding things that work for us and incorporating them into our real lives that in a way that can be ongoing to help us stay feeling better.
And do you feel like that's the biggest gap of what people sometimes don't get is that a diet compared to a life change are two different things, and sometimes the reason your diet
Absolutely.
doesn't work or the practice that you're doing is because you're only viewing it in a narrow sense and not seeing like I have to make this whole life change and not just this one thing.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think, diet systems that have been around that have withstood the test of time, like Weight Watchers, have started to say things like that. It's not a diet, it's a lifestyle change, because that really is the only way you're going to have long-term success, and whatever success means to you, whether it's weight management or feeling better or having your blood lipids at the healthy level, talk to your doctor. It's not easy, but it has to be conscious choice
Right. Yeah,
to
it's a
make a change.
right. I think it's you know, questioning your motivation, right? Like, am I being motivated because I want those six pack abs and I want to be able to prance around in my sort of workout yoga suit to impress
Right,
other people, or am I really consciously making this as a spiritual, physical, mental practice for long lasting change?
right. Yeah. Yeah. And as we age, I'm learning the body doesn't always want to stay with the mind. And our minds want us to be able to do things that our bodies maybe can't do anymore. Um, So, like I said, I sort of said it half jokingly, but seriously, I did develop a shoulder injury. I don't think it was from working with hand weights a little bit. I think that is a good practice to build up some muscle strength. But part of it is that I now have a baby granddaughter and she's adorable. And she learned how to say, "Up." So, of course, when she says, "Up," I'm going to pick her up and I'm going to
Aw,
hurt my shoulder. So,
aw,
does that mean, I have a choice? I don't have to pick the baby up. No, it means my choice is that I'm going to try and figure out what works and what doesn't. So when I do my yoga practice, maybe I have to be a little more careful. Maybe when I'm teaching, I have to say, "You do that. I'm not going to do it." Um, and that makes me think, well, why did this wasn't supposed to happen to me? I'm a yoga teacher. I shouldn't have sore joints. Well, injuries happen to everybody.
yeah.
And it doesn't mean I'm going to not do that anymore. It means sometimes we have to work through things and accept our bodies for where they're at and what we are able to do instead of expecting it to react the way it did 20 years ago or whatever. So
And that's
that's a
another
big issue.
and that's another mind shift too, right? The
Yes,
relationship that you have with your body, right?
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it took me a really long time to get used to seeing that person in the mirror who has gray hair now. So aging has been a big mindset shift for me,
You're
and
making it
getting
look
to,
good though. So whatever you're
well, thank you.
doing, you're making it
Well,
look
thank you.
good.
But yeah, I just mean, just my relationship with how I see the world is really different now that I'm getting older. It just is. It's just shifting priorities and perspective on so many things. So yes, I'm still doing yoga, but no, I'm not doing Ashtanga anymore because it hurts my shoulder. So I'm practicing differently
Hmm.
and coming to accept that.
Yeah.
I have a friend who I love dearly, and I won't mention any names, but she will not wear a sleeveless shirt because she has, flab on her arms because she's older now. I said, "Look, this is your body. First of all, nobody cares except you. Nobody cares. I'm not going to put a sweater on when it's 90 degrees out because I have flab on my arms." So I think to accept our bodies the way they are is critical. for mental health.
Right.
Absolutely.
And I think we don't talk about like what does it mean to be in a healthy body that's aging, right? Like I think a lot of the bodies that we see on media are like youthful and sort of like
Hmm.
at the peak of their sort of whatever. And so I think that there are different body types and we are in different places in our bodies and our development in our bodies. And there's able folks who are able body and folks who have maybe a little more weight on them. And so I do think like that relationship is not recognized in sort of our, youth obsessed culture.
Culture, yes. I think that's true. Um, and again, the fact that such a huge percentage of our population is overweight and or diabetic, I think says a lot about what we think of as normal. If you look at normal levels, whether it's blood levels or heart disease and whatnot, what's normal isn't necessarily what's healthy. What's normal is what the majority of people, it's a mathematical process, normal. And that doesn't mean that that's what's healthy. So really to look at, we all know we're going to age. So do we want to spend our last decade or however long we're given, do we want to spend that feeling crappy and being on all kinds of medications and maybe end up being hospitalized? And no, I mean, I think all of us ideally want to die peacefully in our sleep when we're 90, having led a healthy life and been able to stay active until the end of it. But unless we start taking care of ourselves now, that's not a given. It's something we have to work
Mhm,
at.
mhm,
Yes, genetically, that's, the genes are part of it. And there are people who are lucky and who seem to just have no trouble staying healthy and active as they get older. But that's not the, that's, I would say, the exception to the rule. I think it's more common for people to be unhealthy as they age,
Specifically,
unfortunately.
I think if you're like a caregiver or you're in a partnership where like your living space, isn't it? Because I live alone, and so I could cook whatever I need to cook for the week
Right.
and don't really have to worry about it. And so going back to what you said, like there's so many different variables about like the process of change, right? Sometimes there are people in
Hmm.
life that's just like, what do you mean? You
Yeah,
know,
exactly.
or if you have kids, right? Like trying to
Right. Oh,
negotiate
yeah.
that with kids, right? So
Right.
yeah, making a change, regardless, is a lift, right?
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. And it has to be a conscious choice, and you have to decide to do it. And if you decide not to do it, that's fine too, but do it mindfully, do it consciously. And that's, I think, what yoga helps with,
Mhm.
is whatever choice you've made, make it a conscious choice. Don't act like this happened to you. Yes, people get sick and bad things happen to good people, but for the most part, we, I believe, have some control over how we age, and staying as healthy as we can is based on diet and exercise and spirituality or some form of mindfulness and whatever that means for you. A lot of people go to church. I don't personally, but if that's something that um, is nourishing to you, then that has to be a part of your life too. But don't just go because you're supposed to go. Make it a mindful choice to do that.
Yeah, yeah. What else do you got for us?
That's all my notes. That's all my notes.
Well, I think this is a good place to sort of end if you're
Okay.
so like before we end, I usually like having my folks give a little feedback or things that they could do or practices. So let's say if I'm a person who's watching this for the first time and they're like, oh, I like Tammy's philosophy. Like, what's the advice of where to start or how to begin this journey? Like, do you have any sort of personal advice for folks if they want to get this started?
Well, sign up for a yoga class for sure. And I don't mean just mine. I mean, I don't even have any classes open to the public except at the Godneck Center, but I teach at the college. So you have to be a college student to take this. But I mean, whether it's yoga or whatever kind of activity, for me, part of my path was, like I said, exploring all these different doctors and nutritionists about meal planning and what is a healthy diet. And I've just been watching YouTube videos. I don't know what I would do without YouTube. Also for my yoga, for my home practice, yes, I could go into the living room and do yoga, but there's something about having someone tell me what to do, that so that I don't have to think about it. And because it gives me new ideas, because,
Yeah.
oh, I wouldn't have thought of that. So I really love YouTube. And if you just go on YouTube and say carnivore diet, start there. Say morning yoga and watch a video and find a teacher that you like, because that's another thing. There's so much out there now that if you don't like one, try another one. Maybe you just didn't like the teacher or that style of practice or whatever it was.
Right, right.
And maybe you don't like carnivore diet, but maybe you'll explore your basic keto diet and keto snacks. And there's just so much information out there. That's just an easy way, I find, to get information and then weed through it. And again, you have to make the choice to evaluate, use your brain and evaluate what works for you and what makes sense to you. And if you're not sure, ask your doctor whether they think this is a healthy diet, or don't take yoga, go do Tai Chi, or go do Pilates, or whatever it is, whatever you like, whatever makes, because if you don't like it, you're not going to keep doing it.
Right.
So if we're talking about lifestyle changes, again, a diet is short term, a lifestyle change is something that's going to be able to keep doing. And the same with exercise. Like we said earlier, yeah, you can make yourself take a 4-week class, but then if you want it to become an ongoing part of your life, it has to be something you like to do that you will keep doing, or you won't keep doing it.
Yeah, it's so true.
Mhm.
Well,
It's
thank
quite
you.
simple, really. Find something you love and keep doing it. What's the problem? Right?
Sometimes, sometimes that's the hardest thing to do. Is
Isn't
the
it?
is the simple things, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's right.
yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much, Tammy, for joining
Well,
me and to
yeah.
chatting about some of your
Well, thank you
passions.
so
And
much for inviting me and for thinking of me.
yeah, no, again, like the folks that I'm inviting to sort of sit on these sort of talks with me are folks that I've had conversations that really affected me or brought some sort of insight, and I know that
Yeah.
we've had some really good conversations, either at your place or on a hike or sort of
Yeah.
like after yoga a little bit, so it's always
Sitting at Strange Fellows.
sitting at strange fellows. And so I've just really loved our conversations,
Yeah.
and you just popped in my head as one of those people that really
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
because I love having conversations, and
Yeah.
but not surface stuff, right? Like, oh, the weather is nice, like my work is good. But I feel like when we've had conversations, we've really gone there
Yeah,
in those talks. So
definitely. And I've missed having that, so I'd like to see you in person again sometime.
yay, yeah,
Yay.
we definitely.
All right.
And we live in the same town, so.
I know, right? Crazy.
Hey, Tammy, I'm
All
gonna
right, Ocean. You have a
see
great day.
you too.
Bye-bye.